Hello, how's it going? This is the first video lesson, and this is going to cover one of the components of my approach. The topic will be anticipatory anxiety. The degree which I focus on this will be dependent on your specific goals, your needs, and also what I see during the initial evaluation. First, I have to talk about what exactly is anticipatory anxiety. What this is either the physiological sensation or the cognitive realization that upcoming moment of stuttering may occur. The physiological sensation could be an increase in heart rate, an increase in perceived room temperature causing your hands to sweat. You may feel the hair in the back of your neck start to stand up. The cognitive realization may be just that as you're speaking, you may start to have an alarm in your head that says to you, this certain sound or word or even future speaking situation may be difficult. There are two examples which I'd like to discuss to be able to show you what anticipatory anxiety does to us. Now, what the classroom example would be is, let's say you're 12 years old, you're in the back of a classroom, the teacher walks in, the first thing that she announces is that we as a class will be reading a paragraph in a book, and each student will have to read at least one paragraph. And since you're sitting in the back, you hear this and immediately something happens inside your body. And what happens is it could be an increase in heart rate, it could be you suddenly feel the room temperature increase. But the part about this that shows the high influence of this is that you haven't even begun to speak yet, and that you're just anticipating having to speak in maybe a few minutes. And this anticipation could build as it goes along the entire classroom. The park example would be, let's say you're in Yellowstone National Park and you're walking around and all of a sudden you see a black bear. And the black bear is about 20 yards away, and you know immediately your life is truly in danger. And what happens next is related to the fight or flight response. This response can be seen in both the classroom example and the park example, and I'm going to talk about how it does this. What happens during the fight or flight response is related to something that we all have, people who stutter and people who don't. It's the way our body tells us that there is a moment of danger and we need to protect ourselves. Now, what happens during the fight or flight response is the limbic system in your brain, which deals with emotions such as fear, becomes activated. In the classroom example, the emotion of fear is related to what would happen if you stuttered, what would happen if your own classmates laughed at you while you read out loud. In the park example, the fear is the black bear attacking you. After the limbic system is activated, the autonomic nervous system, which deals with the perceived threat, is also activated. The perceived threat in the classroom example is stuttering while reading out loud while everybody listens. The park example, the perceived threat is the bear. After the limbic system and the autonomic nervous system are both activated, the sympathetic nervous system releases neurotransmitters throughout the body. And what these neurotransmitters do is initiate some of those physiological responses, such as increase in heart rate, such as the perceived increase in room temperature, or if you're outside, just you start to sweat because you're really nervous about the bear attacking you. And what should happen in the classroom example is the parasympathetic nervous system should regulate the heightened anxiety when you know that stuttering while reading out loud is not a life-threatening event. It's an uncomfortable situation that may make you feel sad or upset, but your life is not in danger. But in the park example, your life is in danger, but yet some of the same physiological responses could happen. And I'm going to talk about how these responses play a role in your stuttering as well. What this is the hexagon of stuttering. And there are 6 components to the hexagon right here: intentions, beliefs, perceptions, emotions, behaviors, and physiological. Now, each of these components are interconnected, as you can see by the hexagon. And regarding the classroom example, I'm going to describe how each of those are touched upon in this one example. Your intention before you read is that you want to speak really fluently. You're going to try really hard not to stutter. Your belief is that if you stutter, your classmates may laugh at you. The perception is that if you stutter, your classmates may think you're less intelligent, or maybe your own teacher may feel sorry for you. A possible emotion is that if you stutter, you may feel really sad, you may feel really frustrated that you're unable to read out loud as your own classmates are able to so easily. The behaviors are the actual stuttering moments themselves, such as when you're reading out loud and let's say the word is the people crossed the road. And once you start to stutter, maybe you start to push really hard on some of the sounds. The people cross the road is the way that maybe you may sound as a result of having all this anxiety about reading out loud. And the physiological responses is that you may feel that room's temperature may be really high. You may feel your heart rate increasing as well. And how these are related specifically to the fight or flight response is that pushing, that really trying not to stutter, related to the intentions and the behaviors, is the fight. Is your body's inclination to fight the stuttering moment. The flight is possibly your urge to switch words, or maybe just avoiding reading altogether because of how you may feel about afterwards, about the beliefs you may have about what your fellow classmates may think about. And maybe it's just the fact that the moment is so difficult that you would just rather avoid it altogether. Now, this anticipatory anxiety is on a sliding scale. It's not one set amount. It can fluctuate in the middle of a conversation. It can fluctuate depending on the sound, on the word, on the speaking situation as well. Number 1 would signify the really easy speaking situation, really easy words that you're really not all that worried about. And number 10 will be the situation to be really hard for you. One of the speaking situations that a lot of people who stutter say are difficult for them is introducing themselves, to be able to say their name. And that could be another possibility other than having to say their name would be if they have to do a class presentation or a work presentation where they have to stand up in front of everybody to talk about a particular topic. Now, overall, my approach to address anticipatory anxiety, the overall goal would be to lower it in all speaking situations. We would have to reduce the overall anticipatory anxiety in a hierarchical fashion, starting from the easier sounds, easier words, and easier speaking situations, and move our way up to some of the more challenging ones, because we're trying to improve the level of comfort, level of control, and the level of enjoyability in all speaking situations. We're going to discuss and also reframe and modify some of the beliefs, emotions, and thought processes that go along with speaking in general, and also to specific situations, as to what is going on in regards to beliefs, emotions, or thought processes before you speak. One of the elements of this approach is also to letting go of some of that anticipatory anxiety while you speak. As I said before, that as you're speaking, you may have a certain word or sound that you approach, and you feel that anticipation rising. And one of the things that I'm going to help you out with to be able to learn to do is to, as you approach that word, to be able to sense that anxiety, but then to let go of that anxiety as you speak, making it a lot easier to speak fluently. Next is that focusing on anticipatory anxiety will also help us use the tools, which I will teach you, the physiological tools regarding loosening up the lip tension, sliding into words easier, proper coordination with your breathing and speaking. All those are made easier by lowering anticipatory anxiety. Even though this is the topic I'm speaking about right now, we are not necessarily going to focus on this first. At the same time, we're going to focus on those physiological tools to be able to help improve your overall fluency, and to help you gain control of it, and to help you enjoy more speaking situations. And one of the reasons why it's important to address anticipatory anxiety while also addressing the physiological tools is that it makes it a lot easier to use those tools when you have lower anticipatory anxiety. There are times when some of those techniques by themselves are a lot harder to execute when your body's so high on anxiety. And when that increase of anxiety happens, it's a lot harder to slide through that word, or to be able to focus on your vocal cords. That's one of the other physiological tools we're going to focus on, is focusing on controlling how your vocal cords work. All those are made a lot easier when your overall anticipatory anxiety is lowered. And as I've said before, this approach, as well as the other techniques, will be focusing on increasing your control and enjoyability of speaking in all speaking situations. Thank you.